The living room glowed softly under the warm light of a chandelier that had seen better days, its crystals dulled by years of dust. Our house, a modest 2-story nestled in the heart of a quiet Midwestern town, was a patchwork of memories. Creaky hardwood floors, faded wallpaper, and a fireplace that crackled with the last embers of a dying fire. Tonight, it hummed with life, the air thick with the scent of red wine, melted candle wax, and the faint tang of stale chips left on the coffee table. The jazz drifting from a speaker in the corner was barely audible over the laughter and clinking glasses. A familiar soundtrack to the gatherings Daniel and I had hosted for years. These evenings were our ritual, a chance to gather with our closest friends, the Carters and the Ellises, to shed the weight of the week and revel in the comfort of old bonds. But tonight there was an undercurrent, a subtle tension that prickled my skin, as if the room itself sensed the challenge brewing beneath the surface. I stood by the fireplace swirling the wine in my glass, my eyes scanning the room. The furniture was worn but inviting, the couch sagging slightly under the weight of too many nights like this. Daniel sat across from me, one ankle resting casually over his knee, his presence quiet but commanding like a storm waiting to break. His dark hair was flecked with silver, his face etched with lines from years of laughter and hard work, but his eyes held the same spark that had drawn me to him 21 years ago. We'd met in college, 2 reckless kids who thought they knew the world, and somehow through the chaos of life, job changes, financial struggles, the slow grind of time, we'd kept our fire alive. It wasn't just love, it was a hunger, a connection that deepened with every challenge, every year. I could still picture our first night together tangled in the sheets of his cramped dorm room, the world outside forgotten. As we discovered each other, that spark had never faded, and tonight I felt it burning brighter than ever. Mrs. Carter perched on the arm of the opposite couch, broke the silence with a theatrical sigh, her blonde hair spilling over her shoulder like a practiced performance. "It's honestly exhausting," she said, flopping back as if the room were her stage, her voice laced with a playful edge that didn't quite hide the challenge beneath. "Every night, like we're trying to win a medal or something." Mr. Carter smirked, not looking up from his whiskey, his fingers curled around the glass with a casual arrogance. "What can I say? Some of us are still in our prime." Their laughter was loud, pointed, not just a joke between them, but a performance for us, a way to flaunt their youth, their vitality in front of the older couples in the room. They were the youngest here, barely past their 30s, and they wore their confidence like a badge, as if time hadn't yet dared to touch them. I felt Daniel tense beside me, his stillness a contrast to the Carter's theatrics. He didn't need to speak. I could sense the shift in him, the quiet confidence that always surfaced when someone underestimated us. It reminded me of a night years ago when we'd snuck away from a friend's wedding, finding a quiet corner of the venue to steal a moment for ourselves. We'd laughed breathless as we realized we were still those kids, still hungry for each other no matter how many years had passed. Mrs. Carter raised her glass, grinning at us, and the Ellises oblivious to the spark she was igniting. "But hey, at least you guys don't have to worry about that stuff anymore, right?" I tilted my head, my lips curving into a faint smile as she pressed on her words, dripping with condescension. "I mean, you've put in your time. Now you get to relax, enjoy the quieter parts of life. No need to keep up with all the..." She made a vague hand motion, smirking, nightly expectations. Mr. Carter gave a soft laugh, muttering, "They've earned it," as if it were a compliment. But his tone carried a hint of superiority, as if he believed we'd settled into a passionless routine. Across from us, Mr. Ellis glanced at his wife, then down at the floor. His shoulders stiff, his face a mask of quiet resignation. Mrs. Ellis offered a tight smile, her hand barely brushing his knee, a gesture that felt more like obligation than affection. Neither of them argued. If anything, they looked like they agreed, like they'd accepted the idea that their fire had long since faded. But we hadn't. I slid my hand slowly across Daniel's thigh, settling closer against him as I set my glass aside, the cool glass clinking softly against the table, the sound sharp in the quiet moment. Actually, I said, my voice soft but deliberate, cutting through the room like a blade. We still do it almost every night, Mrs. Carter blinked, her smile faltering, her glass pausing halfway to her lips. Mr. Carter stared, the amusement draining from his face, his eyes narrowing slightly as if he couldn't quite believe what he'd heard. I turned to Daniel, running my hand up his chest, my fingers lingering on the familiar planes of his body, tracing the lines I knew by heart. "This one's a beast in bed." Mrs. Ellis inhaled sharply, the sound breaking the silence, her hand clutching her husband's arm. Daniel chuckled low in his throat, his gaze finally meeting Mr. Carter's, steady and unyielding. "We've been together 21 years, he said calmly. "And I'd say the last 5 have been the best." Mrs. Carter laughed, but it sounded thinner, less certain, her confidence shaken. "Wait, seriously, every night?" She looked me up and down, her eyes lingering on my figure, then glanced at Daniel, her expression a mix of disbelief and curiosity. "I mean, you still look amazing, but there's no way he's keeping up with that." Her smile was almost condescending, as if she were doing us a favour by pretending to believe it. I let the silence stretch my gaze steady, unflinching, letting her words hang in the air. Then I smiled, slow and deliberate. "You'd be surprised what he's capable of." Daniel leaned forward slightly, his voice calm but edged with a confidence that made the room feel smaller. "She makes it easy to keep up, Mr." Carter gave a half laugh, almost nervous, his fingers tightening around his glass, his bravado faltering. "Yeah, well, I don't think I could believe it without seeing it." The words slipped out, a challenge he hadn't meant to issue, but one he couldn't take back. I tilted my head, my smile sharpening a spark of defiance, igniting in my chest. He didn't answer, but he didn't look away either, his eyes locked on mine, daring me to respond. The tension in the room thickened the air, heavy with unspoken possibilities, the jazz fading into a distant hum. I let the silence linger, savouring the weight of their attention. Then spoke my voice light but deliberate. "You know I wasn't planning on putting on a show tonight." I stepped in front of Daniel, smoothing my hand over his shoulder, my touch slow and intentional, a promise and a challenge rolled into one. "But since you asked so nicely," I looked toward Mr. Carter, my eyes steady, unflinching. "Don't say I didn't give you a chance to back out." Daniel leaned back, his arms stretched along the couch, completely relaxed, as if he knew exactly where this was going, as if he'd been waiting for it all night. His confidence was infectious, a quiet assurance that steadied me, grounded me. I turned toward him, my fingers trailing slowly down his chest, the room going still around us. The jazz was drowned out by the pounding of my own heart, a rhythm that matched the fire burning inside me. Then I dropped to my knees, the motion deliberate, unhesitant, the carpet soft beneath me. Mrs. Ellis let out a soft gasp, her voice barely a whisper. "What are you doing?" I didn't look away from Daniel, my focus unwavering as I reached for his zipper, my fingers steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me, putting on a show. I said, my voice low and steady, a declaration meant for everyone in the room. I didn't hesitate, reaching in and wrapping my hand around him. He was already firm, steady, ready, waiting, his body responding to me as it always did, a testament to the connection we'd nurtured for decades. My fingers settled there, slow and deliberate, giving them time to process what they were seeing, to feel the weight of it. Then I looked over my shoulder and smiled, my gaze sweeping across the room, daring them to look away. No one moved. The Carters sat frozen, their earlier bravado replaced by wide-eyed shock, their glasses forgotten in their hands. The Ellises were equally still, Mrs. Ellis's hand clutching her husband's arm, her breath shallow, her eyes wide with disbelief. I lowered myself without hesitation. No teasing, no build-up, just deliberate motion and full focus. My lips grazed him, soft and slow at first, teasing. Then again, slower, my tongue following with purposeful care. I savoured the closeness, the intimacy, letting every movement count, every touch, a testament to the connection we'd built over years of love and trust. Daniel exhaled softly, the sound buried low in his chest, his body relaxing into the couch, one hand resting lightly against the armrest. The breathing in the room changed, longer, slower, deeper, a collective shift, as our audience adjusted to the reality of what they were witnessing. I let my hand and mouth move together, smooth and steady, not rushed, each motion intentional, like I was building something just for him and letting them watch me do it. Daniel adjusted in his seat, a subtle shift, unmistakable, his body responding to me in ways that felt as familiar as my own heartbeat. His hand came down, fingertips resting at the back of my head, not pushing, just there, anchoring me, guiding gently. I followed his lead, letting him set the rhythm, moving with him, like it was a song we both knew by heart. We moved together, like this was muscle memory, a dance we'd perfected over years of late nights and quiet mornings, of stolen moments and unspoken promises. The room behind me had gone quiet, but not empty. I could feel their eyes, the weight of their attention, how still they'd become, as if the air itself had stopped moving, and still I didn't break focus. Not for a second. I thought back to a moment years ago, during a rough patch in our marriage, when we'd almost lost each other to the grind of daily life. We'd been distant, caught up in work and routine, until one night Daniel had pulled me close, his voice soft but firm. "We're not done," he'd said, and we'd spent hours rediscovering each other, rebuilding what we'd let slip. That night had been a turning point, a reminder that our fire wasn't just a gift, it was a choice, one we made every day. These people, our friends, thought time had dulled us, that age had stolen our passion. They were wrong, and I was determined to prove it, not just to them, but to myself. When I finally pulled back, I rose slowly, smoothly, my eyes locked on Daniel's, his gaze warm and steady, a silent acknowledgement of what we were doing. I stood, unbuttoned my blouse and let it fall to the floor, the silk pooling at my feet like a shed skin. My skirt followed, then everything else. Each piece of clothing a deliberate act of defiance, a rejection of their assumptions. The air was cool against my skin, but I felt alive. Electric, every nerve humming with anticipation. I eased myself onto his lap, settling across him with practiced ease, my thighs straddling his hips. my body aligned with his. His hands gripped my thighs, tight, grounded, ready. His touch, a reminder of the years we'd spent learning each other. I looked up, meeting every pair of eyes in the room, my voice low and steady. "Hope you enjoyed the warm-up." I settled closer, drawn by gravity and something deeper, more primal, a connection that had only grown stronger with time. I moved over him in a measured, grounded rhythm, my knees rooted into the cushions, my hands planted firmly on his chest. Every motion was intentional, controlled, weighted, a testament to the trust we'd built. Daniel's grip on my waist grew firmer with each pass, his breathing deepening beneath me. But he didn't lead. He let me move how I wanted, trusting me to set the pace, to show them what we were capable of. I leaned forward until my chest brushed his, my forehead resting gently against his for a breath. Our closeness, a private moment in the midst of their scrutiny. Then I rocked back, adjusting the angle, letting more of my body respond to his, letting them see the truth of our connection. He released a slow breath through his nose, quiet but thick with tension, his hands steady on my sides. I kept going, the rhythm, steady, deliberate, each movement a challenge to their assumptions. The room had fallen still, not empty, not silent but suspended, as if time itself had paused to watch. Somewhere behind me the couch creaked a faint sound that broke the quiet. A whispered, "Oh my God!" escaped Mrs. Ellis, her voice trembling with disbelief. Mr. Carter's voice followed sharper. Disbelieving. "I can't believe they're actually doing this." I didn't stop, if anything. I moved with more precision. Bolder, now sharper at the edges. My movements, a declaration of our vitality, our fire. My spine curved as I let my head tip back, drawing the motion out with purpose, letting them see every line of my body, every moment of our connection. Daniel's hands slid along my sides, anchoring me with a heat that made my breath catch low in my chest. His body had gone taut beneath me, tense, focused, holding on his restraint a mirror of my own. "You're unreal," he murmured, his voice barely audible, meant only for me. A private affirmation. In the midst of their gaze, I didn't answer, only shifted again, deeper, slower, more complete, letting him feel all of it, letting them see the depth of what we shared. The night before, we'd lain in bed talking about this very moment, about the way our friends had started to treat us like relics, like our best days were behind us. Daniel had laughed, his hand tracing circles on my back, and said, "They have no idea what they're missing." I'd agreed, but there was a part of me that felt the sting of their assumptions, the way they looked at us with pity, as if time had stolen something essential. Tonight was about proving them wrong, about showing them that passion didn't fade, that love could burn brighter with every year. But it was also about us, about reclaiming our own truth, our own fire in the face of their doubt. Daniel sat up, his arms locking around my back, pulling me close, his warmth enveloping me. He kissed just behind my ear, his voice a whisper, meant only for me. "Come here." I nodded, a silent agreement, our connection unspoken but absolute. He rose with me in his arms, our bodies still joined, and stepped off the couch, his movements steady, assured. He lowered to his knees and eased me down onto the rug, laying me out gently in the centre of the room. the carpet warm against my back, grounding me in the moment I adjusted, without effort, my legs parting with instinctive ease. Open to him, my body an invitation and a challenge. That's when I saw them. Their reactions, a mirror of our defiance. Mrs. Ellis was on her knees, her lips drifting down her husband's stomach, his hand resting softly in her hair, guiding her with quiet care. Their own fire rekindled by what they were witnessing. Mrs. Carter sat tense, her legs crossed tightly, her face unreadable, but flushed, her eyes wide with a mix of shock and fascination. Mr. Carter leaned forward, elbows braced on his knees, his gaze fixed and unmoving, his earlier bravado replaced by something raw, unguarded. I looked at them all and smiled a quiet triumph in my chest. They doubted us, questioned our fire, our connection. Now they couldn't look away, their own assumptions unravelling in the face of our truth. Daniel knelt between my legs, one palm pressing gently into my thigh, the other braced near my ribs, his touch steady grounding. Our eyes met, a silent understanding passing between us, a reaffirmation of the bond we'd built over decades. Then he moved towards me again, settling over me with full weight, deliberate and complete. His body stretched across mine chest against skin warmth, pressing through every point of contact. My legs wrapped around his waist, keeping him close, anchoring us to the rug beneath. The room vanished, the sounds blurring at the edges, the jazz and whispers fading into the background. All that remained was the cadence between us, thick, deliberate, folding me into each movement like we were breathing in sync. Every shift from him lit up something deep inside, a spark that grew with each motion, a fire that had never dimmed. One hand found my wrist, threading our fingers together above my head, a gesture that felt as intimate as any touch. The other steadied against the side of my thigh, holding me in place with a quiet force that left no doubt about his presence, his intent. I arched into him without thinking, letting the motion carry us further, my body responding to his, with a trust born of years. Air caught in my throat, a soft sound escaping me. His mouth hovered at my neck, not kissing, just exhaling, and every restrained tremor in him radiated through me, a shared intensity that felt like it could consume us both. He was focused, grounded, completely present, and I was right there with him, tilting my head. I caught just enough of the room to see Mrs. Ellis had taken her place above her husband, moving with a kind of wild flow, her body lifting and lowering in time with his hands at her waist. They weren't just caught in the moment, they were consumed, their own passion reignited by the fire we'd set. Across from them, the Carters remained frozen, arms crossed tightly, lips pressed. Pale Mrs. Carter didn't even blink, her eyes locked on us. Her face, a mix of shock and something else, envy perhaps, or longing. Mr. Carter stared forward, knuckles locked between his knees, his face a canvas of conflicting emotions, disbelief, fascination, a hint of regret. They looked like they'd forgotten how to breathe. The youngest couple in the room, completely undone by what they were witnessing. I turned back to Daniel, his gaze never leaving me, his eyes warm and steady, a silent promise that this was for us, as much as it was for them. That motion, that weight, that warmth, it was all still there, building towards something heavier, more intense, a crescendo we'd built together over years. Without warning, His arms gathered beneath me, one under my shoulder, the other beneath my hips. With a single seamless motion he turned me the shift, sending a jolt through my spine. Heat rushing up my throat, my hands caught the rug, knees planted wide, my body open, ready. He drew in behind me close, certain, unshakable, his presence a steady anchor in the storm of sensation. "Don't hold back." I breathed, my voice barely audible, a plea and a command. He didn't. His fingers closed around my hips, and the pace changed entirely. No more patience, no restraint. Each motion came with purpose, steady, grounded, unrelenting, a rhythm that felt like it could shake the foundations of the house. The sound of our bodies meeting filled the room, a low thunder rolling across fabric, drowning out the jazz, the whispers, the gasps. My arms strained to hold me up, elbows bent, palms flattened to stay grounded, every muscle taut with effort, every part of me tensed, braced, opened again, my body a canvas for the intensity we were building. I glanced over my shoulder, and there she was, Mrs. Carter, her eyes locked on mine, mouth parted, frozen, not judging, just witnessing her earlier smugness replaced by something raw, unguarded. I didn't blink, didn't look away. I wanted her to see, to understand what she'd doubted, to feel the weight of her misjudgment. Then I turned forward again, letting everything else fall away. The tempo climbed higher sharp, and consuming each movement a step closer to the edge. His hold was firm. My lungs seized, my body tightened, stretched and hovered, right at the edge. A moment of perfect suspension. Something inside let go. A sound escaping, half breath, half cry, raw and unfiltered. I folded forward, trembling the world around me, lit with something hot, breathless and bright. A release that felt like it could shatter me. For a moment, just long enough to catch one shallow breath, he paused, then moved again, with even more force, more drive, more life, carrying us both through the aftershocks. He didn't stop, and neither did I, carried by the rhythm we'd built together, witnessed by a room that had doubted us, but now couldn't look away. The room slowly came back into focus, the jazz returning, the air thick with the scent of wine and sweat. I collapsed onto the rug, my body spent, my breath uneven, my skin flushed with the heat of what we'd done. Daniel eased down beside me, his hand resting lightly on my back, his touch a quiet reassurance. The Carters and Ellises were still there, their reactions a mix of awe and discomfort. Mrs. Ellis and her husband were tangled together, their own moment of reconnection still unfolding, their breathing heavy, their eyes bright. The Carters, though, remained frozen. Their earlier confidence shattered their silence louder than any words I thought back to the early days of our marriage, when we'd lie awake at night talking about everything and nothing. Our bodies pressed close, our dreams as big as the world. We'd promised each other we'd never let life dull us, never let time steal the spark that had brought us together. Over the years we'd kept that promise, finding new ways to keep the fire alive, to challenge each other to grow together. Tonight wasn't just about proving a point to our friends. It was about proving it to ourselves, about reclaiming our truth in the face of their doubt. The night wound down slowly, the tension in the room easing, but never fully dissipating. The Carters left first their goodbyes, stiff, their eyes avoiding ours, as if they couldn't bear to face what they'd seen. The Ellises lingered, their conversation softer, more genuine, as if what they'd witnessed had shifted something in them, rekindled a spark they'd thought lost. when the house was finally empty. Daniel and I sat on the couch, the silence between us comfortable, familiar. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low, his hand finding mine. I nodded, a smile tugging at my lips. More than okay. The next morning, I woke to the smell of coffee and the soft clatter of dishes in the kitchen. Daniel was already up humming to himself as he cooked breakfast, a ritual that always grounded me. I sat at the table, my mind replaying the events of the night before. The way we'd taken their doubt and turned it into something undeniable. But there was a new weight in my chest, a flicker of worry about what this meant for our friendships, for the quiet life we'd built in this small town. What if word got out? What if someone whispered about what they'd seen, turning our moment of defiance into gossip that could unravel everything? My phone buzzed, pulling me from my thoughts. It was a message from my friend Laura, someone I'd known since high school, who hadn't been at the gathering, but knew me better than almost anyone. "You seem off lately," she wrote. "Everything okay?" My heart thudded, the weight of her words heavier than they should have been. Laura had a way of seeing through me, of picking up on the smallest changes in my mood. I typed a quick reply. "Just busy. Let's catch up soon." But the unease lingered, a reminder that I was carrying a secret now, one that could change how people saw us. That afternoon, Mrs. Carter arrived at our house, her knock hesitant, her usual confidence replaced by something softer, more vulnerable. We sat in the living room, the same room where everything had unfolded, and she fidgeted with her coffee mug, her eyes darting around as if searching for the right words. "Last night," she started, then paused, her cheeks flushing. "I didn't expect that. I didn't expect you and Daniel to be like that." I waited, letting her find her words, sensing the weight of what she was trying to say. "It made me think," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper, "about me and John, about what we've lost. I used to think we were the passionate ones, the ones who had it all figured out, but now, I don't know. Seeing you two, it was like looking at something we used to have." I leaned forward, my voice gentle but firm. "It's not about age or time, Emily. It's about choosing each other every day, no matter what. Daniel and I aren't perfect, but we fight for it. We don't let it fade." She nodded, her eyes glistening. And for the first time, I saw her not as the smug younger woman who'd doubted us, but as someone searching for something she'd let slip away. We talked for hours about love, about marriage, about the work it takes to keep a spark alive. She shared stories of her early days with John, the way they'd once been, unable to keep their hands off each other, and the slow drift that had settled in without them noticing. When she left, there was a lightness in her step, a determination I hadn't seen before, as if our conversation had given her a roadmap back to her own fire. The days that followed were quiet, but the memory of that night lingered, a touchstone for Daniel and me. We fell back into our routines, work errands, quiet evenings on the porch. But there was a new energy between us, a renewed sense of purpose. The Carters and Ellises remained our friends, but there was a shift in how they saw us, a respect that hadn't been there before. Laura called again, pressing for details, her voice laced with concern. "You're hiding something," she said, half teasing, half serious. I laughed it off, but her words stayed with me. A reminder that our moment of defiance had come with a cost, a secret that could unravel the careful balance of our lives. One evening, as Daniel and I sat on the porch, the sunset painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I turned to him, my voice soft. Do you ever worry about what happens if people find out? He looked at me, his eyes warm, steady, the same eyes that had seen me through every storm. Let them talk, he said, his hand squeezing mine. What we have is ours. No one can take that away. I nodded, the weight in my chest easing, replaced by a quiet certainty. That night had been a risk, a leap into the unknown. But it had also been a reaffirmation of who we were, of the fire we'd fought to keep alive. Whatever came next, gossip, judgment, or acceptance, we'd face it together as we always had.